Welcome to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Leonard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. Really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everyone. This is a somber introduction. It will be used to my Wednesday, looking at my calendar, November the 13th drop. Behind the scenes, I am recording this now, Sunday, November the 10th. And behind the scenes video, you could see soldiers in the background. Merry Christmas to soldiers everywhere who can't be with their families. Monday, November 11th is, of course, Veterans Day. So whether you're seeing this ahead or after doesn't diminish, hopefully, my thank you to all of you who has indeed served. Now, it's important. I wasn't able to write down notes. I was thinking through this on the way home, driving, so I couldn't take notes. Again, this will be released as a standalone video, but also will be incorporated as an intro segment into the show with Robert Boog that will be talking about Shakespeare. Not related at all to any of this, just saying. So whether any time ahead or any time after is irrelevant. It's important to note, and bear with me, the United States Postal Service delivers packages on Sundays. A USPS guy, a carrier that I know, spoken to many times, just happened to be delivering a package across the street. And so I said hello and whatever, and as he was parting, he wished me a happy Veterans Day. Well, let me make something clear in case if others are confused. I am involved in veterans' causes very much. I wear health tag, not dog tags, but because of the way I dress, sometimes some might say the way I act, they believe that I had served, and I had not. I very much am opposed and call out and will not tolerate stolen valor. So I just wanted to make clear, in case of anyone in this audience mistook, thought I am indeed a veteran when I am not. So thank you to all the veterans out there for having served. And it's also important, I had in my mind, I will put a meme up that I share every military holiday because people conflate the holidays. Armed Forces Day is for those who are serving. Memorial Day is, of course, for those who gave the final full measure, their life. Veterans Day are for those all who have served and living or dead, died of other causes, natural causes, that they would be honored as a veteran, even ex post facto, having their life extinguished by other causes. I just wanted to make sure to share that we honor our veterans, but that we make distinct and know the difference between the holidays. So, thank you all for tuning in if you're watching the standalone video. If you're seeing this or hearing this as part of the Wednesday guest Robert Boog drop, we're going to get on with that segment now, unrelated, other than the fact that this is all being put together the week heading into Veterans Day. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. I know Logan Steakhouse is giving free meals to veterans. So if you are a veteran, they and other places, if you are a veteran, please avail yourself of a free meal. You are owed so much more than that. Thank you all. Take care. God bless, and may God bless America again. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Constitutionalist Politics Podcast, Wednesday midweek drop. If you're on the behind the scenes video, you could see my very, very wrinkled Beyond the Mask theater captain shirt because we're going to be talking theater. Although this was movie theater, we're going to be talking traditional theater, the stage kind. And joining to me, oh boy, I already can't talk. Joining with me today is Robert the Boogeyman Boog. But seriously, Robert Boog, Boog. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, let's go through the traditional nitty gritty. Let's get the background on, where you were born and raised and where you're living now and all that good stuff before we get into, spoiler alert, Shakespeare. But, give us the nitty gritty on the who you are, where you came from, all that good stuff. How many years did you spend in prison?
Well, I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I lived there for 10 years. So I was in prison for 10 years, I guess. Now, I'm the fifth child in a family of 9 children. So my dad was a city manager of the city of Plymouth, and my mother caught pneumonia 3 times. And the doctor told her, if you catch it one more time, you're not going to survive. So
get the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah, we were forced to move out of Minnesota, and my dad had a job lined up in Indio, California, which is where they have like some big music festivals and stuff, Stagecoach and things like that. And when he arrived in California, the job was filled. So we had a crash at my aunt's house. So just imagine 11 people crashing at it. My aunt and uncle. My poor aunt was in a wheelchair too, by the way. And so we crashed at her place for about probably 6 months, and then we moved out. And so I graduated high school, or my folks moved to Santa Clarita, California, which is known for the Santa Clarita Diet, I guess. And
I knew that name from somewhere.
Yeah. So I attended schools locally here. I got a scholarship to UCLA, graduated in 4 years. And while I was at UCLA, my dad and mom started a real estate company. I went to the library. My dad said, you should get your real estate license. So I studied some books that I found in the library, took the test, and I passed it. So I had my real estate license in my hot little hand before graduating. And so that's kind of how I started. But the first week I was in real estate, I sold a house. So I went just gangbusters from there.
All right. And I apologize for people seeing the video. You see me kind of twisting and turning and tweaking. I got a tweak in my neck here. I don't know what I did. I don't know if it was from sleeping or working around the yard today or what, but whatever. So if I look like I'm squirming on the video, I am. I got a kink in the neck there that just doesn't want to work out. But you're here today to talk about Shakespeare, or shall we say, plays by potentially Edward de Vere. At least that's what some allege. Some would call it a conspiracy. I mean, I'm '62. I was born in '62. In high school, I was part of a play production team. We didn't put on Shakespeare. We did Guys and Dolls, like a lot of schools do, 'cause a lot easier. I wasn't interested in acting. I was more,
Were you
uh,
Nathan Detroit?
yeah, that's a good one. I should have been. No, I was not all and being on the stage, but behind the stage, helping and doing all that stuff. But I mean, I recall back in high school days this conspiracy, and a lot of people think it's reality. I'm not taking a position one way or the other. A lot of people wrote for other people, and others got credit for their work. So I don't know what to think on this one. I'm not concerned about it. Ad hominem attacks that Shakespeare was a pedophile. So how much of this is earnest reality wanting to deal in fact, and how much of it is jealous idiots just creating a stir? I don't know. What do you think?
Okay. I want you to imagine the 1950s. And in the 1950s, there was a man by the name of Ian McClellan Hunter. And in 1953, he won the Oscar for a screenplay called Roman Holiday. So Ian McClellan Hunter was a real person involved in in screenplay, movie making, television, and movies for several years. He won the Oscars, so obviously he was a writer, right? But the truth is that he did not write Roman Holiday. It was penned by Dalton Trumbo, and Dalton Trumbo was one of the Hollywood 10. So he had to, he went before Joe McCarthy in the Un-American Committee and admitted that he had been a member of the Communist Party. And McCarthy believed that what he was writing was seditious and he should be, naming other names. And Trumbo refused. He was put in jail for a year and then released. So my belief is that something like this happened. Back in Queen Elizabeth's time, Queen Elizabeth I, we're talking in the 1570s, 1580s. And by the way, in 1581, there was a man by the name of, I think it was John Stumps, something like that. It's kind of an appropriate name because he wrote a pamphlet that said that Queen Elizabeth was too old to have a child. Everybody wanted to know who the next ruler would be, or the monarch after Queen Elizabeth, because she didn't have a child. He said, well, I think she's too old to have a child. And he was dragged out of his bed, brought to the front courtyard, and they lopped off his right hand with a meat cleaver because he had said something that was offensive to the Queen. So back then, it was a police state, not unlike the 1950s, where they were looking for writers, playwrights. They wanted to control what people, said. So you couldn't say anything offensive about the Queen.
Oh, not much like today.
Correct.
Same thing. Whole lot of that going on today. So
Sure.
More things change, the more they stay the same, as the saying goes.
Kind of like that. Yes, exactly. So here we have, you kind of wonder, like, why would anyone really put their name on a play like Antony and Cleopatra, where people might assume Cleopatra was Queen Elizabeth and she dies in the play? That would be like stupid. I mean, and the rule was if you imagined the death of a monarch, you could be maimed, imprisoned, or back then their favorite method of killing priests was draw, quarter, and hang them. So they would have 4 horses that, they would tie your limbs to 4 horses, and after they pulled on them,
Send them in different directions.
They sent them. Then they would gut you. They would slice your innards, set it on fire, and then they would hang you. So while you were dying, you would be smelling the burning flesh of your intestines, basically. So it was a horrible way to die. So who would want that? Nobody. But yet here we have this guy named William Shakespeare. So, okay, so I'm one of those people that I'm kind of like a dog on a bone. When something doesn't make sense, it bothers me. And I will keep on, like, until I get a satisfactory kind of explanation, it just, I keep digging or trying to find out, like, what do I think really happened here?
Yeah.
So that was first, one of the questions. I think one of the first things that bothered me was, like, in 1601, and I think you saw the movie Anonymous. Right?
Yeah, I'm gonna bring that up.
Oh, okay,
yep.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. So in 1601, there was a guy by the name of Robert Devereux, and Devereux, who was the Earl of Essex, they call it the Essex Rebellion, that he and this mob were going to take over, Queen Elizabeth while she was watching a play by Shakespeare, Richard II. The man who paid for the performance was a guy by the name of Gilly Myrick or something like that. Now, Gilly Myrick was drawn, quartered, and hung. He just paid for it. The Earl of Essex was beheaded, and Henry Wriothesley, however you want to call him, was imprisoned in the Tower of London. These were the main people. But the person who wrote the play, William Shakespeare, never questioned. Nothing ever happened to him. So it's off. You know what I mean? There's something wrong here that isn't right. I was an English major at UCLA. I took several Shakespeare courses, but I was a believer that he was the Glover's son. I bought that story, and I didn't disbelieve it. And for probably like 30, 35 years, I thought it never crossed my mind. And then I watched this movie, and then suddenly it was like dominoes falling into place, where I started wondering, like, what is going on? There's something not right here. And so I started to do my little research. Well,
Before we go on more with some of this serious stuff, my listeners know I can never avoid lame puns. So I'm an author. I've got 5 international books out right now. I'm not William Shakespeare. I'm William Shakes Javelin. Bum.
And there you go.
Right. And I got to tell my Shakespeare joke. To be or not to be is truly the question. Because if it's to be, I got bingo. You did bring up the Anonymous film. Yeah, I definitely want to mention that because, Anonymous is from one of my favorite, if not my favorite, director, Roland Emmerich, the guy behind a lot of the blockbusters, over-the-top sci-fi films like Stargate, the Independence Day movies, The Day After Tomorrow, about everything freezing, even though he's not a climate big climate guy, like he said, hey, it's a thing, I can make a movie around it, right? So, because that worries me, like, as an author, people assume what's in the book must be what I believe. And, characters have artificial stances in order to bring together a story, right? And every director doesn't necessarily believe in the man-made climate changes. It always has, always will, goes up, goes down. There's solar flares, there's sunspots, there's the earth wobble, and all that stuff, So, but man-made is a whole other thing. I forgot where I was going to go with it. But anyway, So Roland Emmerich, Stargate, one of my favorite films, definitely my favorite TV show. The Day After Tomorrow, which got me off on the climate thing. He did a film called Anonymous, as you said, which is a fictionalized drama or historical drama. They say it involved, like Beyond the Mask and My Terror Strikes book, there's supposedly some historical accuracy mixed in with the fictionalism that tells that story of Shakespeare really wasn't the author. And again, for those listening, I am not taking a position one way or another. All these years later, frankly, in my mind, I don't give a darn. It don't matter too much. But this is a great topic. It's a wonderful subject, and it certainly does matter to a lot of people. That's why Robert Boog is on. So you did see the Anonymous film also? That came out in 2015, it was. No, that was Beyond the Mask. Came out in 2015. Anonymous came out in 2011. So that was quite a while ago. But like I say, all the way back to high school, when I was in high school in the late 70s, this was a thing then. So this is not something new.
Correct. I didn't see the movie when it premiered, when it came out. But the portrayal that they have in that movie is actually one that is endorsed by a lot of what are called Oxfordians, people who believe that the 17th Earl of Oxford was indeed Shakespeare. You said Shakespeare's javelin. Well, they would say that this was another name for male pleasure, put it that way.
Oh, so, yeah, right. Yeah,
so
exactly, yeah.
So
this was not quite a double entendre, pretty much an in your face with it, yeah.
Yeah. Now, when you look closely, the movie Anonymous follows what is called the Prince Tudor theory, meaning that Queen Elizabeth gave birth to three sons, or two or three sons, Devereux, De Vere, and Henry Rosalie, and that she and Edward de Vere had an affair, and their son was named Henry Rose. I should have said spoiler alert for Anonymous fans, but
well, it's an old film. If they haven't seen it by now, since it came out in 2011, again, by the end of this episode, they kind of know.
Right.
Direct spoiler or indirect, and I recommend virtually any movie produced by Roland Emmerich.
You know what? I really I enjoyed it. I loved the the sets and the action, all the stuff. It was a bit maybe controversial because of the stand that he took about Queen Elizabeth being Edward de Vere's mother, plus being his lover, and so that is pretty wild. I don't subscribe to that particular theory. My belief is that, and I don't discount if anyone believes that this really happened. It could have been, and I don't know. I look more towards the texts. So the thing that I noticed, and this is evidence that has been sitting around for over 400 years. And you can fact check me if you want, but if you have a cell phone, one of the websites that you can go to is a website called shakespeareswords.com. And what they've done is compiled all the words that are in Shakespeare's text. And then if you punch in a word, you will see the modern text and the original text. I think I got into this because there was, in the late 90s, there was a man who claimed that Edward de Vere cannot be the author of Shakespeare due to stylometry. And stylometry is a computer analysis of text. And not everybody, but the majority of people said, oh, this solves it once and for all, right? So being like the dog that chews the bone, I have to do it myself to double check, because I'm from real estate. people always tell you exactly what you want to hear, and so you shut up, you shut up, and then later you say, wait, I thought you said the interest rate was going to be 6.5 and now it's like 7.5 or something, like you've got to constantly be on people. I tried to do the stylometry, and when I was doing it, I thought, wait a second, there's the modern text and there's the original text. Which text were they using when they did this analysis? Number one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
In the details of the data, exactly. Modern technology with AI and everything, Boker, who controls the ISBNs for books, and they've got a bunch of subsidiaries, and one of them is called Score It, and they are one where you can upload your book, and it will compare it against millions of books, see who you're most stylistically like. Now, their claim to fame and why they're so good is they were the ones that broke about K. Rowling, and I'm drawing a blank, maybe wrote a book under a nom de plume, and for years it was bestseller book, and everybody, who is this person? We know they're not real. Who is it? And they broke it, and she did eventually admit, yes, she wrote it under that name. I can't remember the book, darn it, and I can't remember the name she wrote it under. But Rowling fans out there should.
Yes.
What was the name of that book, and what did she pen it under? Do you remember?
I don't. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah.
Getting to, right. Yes, we're both having a mental block here. But other than wanting to be historically accurate and getting things right and people getting credit where credit is due, what does this matter to us all these years later? That, I think, is the biggest question.
Okay, well, that involves like the question, does the truth matter? Does the truth matter? I mean,
it does. Yes, it does.
It tells us
truth and honesty.
Yeah, and so we make informed decisions based on what is truthful versus what is just not truthful. I mean, without truth, our communication breaks down because we believe, in something that, is completely false. You were talking about climate change earlier. Yeah, that could be there. I mean, there are things that we don't really know, but if we knew the truth, then we wouldn't be so worried about it, or we would be able to make rational, informed decisions better when we know the truth. Even though it may harm some people, I think overall the truth matters. So getting back to what I did when I went into Shakespeare's words, now get this, we know that William Shakespeare used the secretary hand, and this has been confirmed by his signatures. He's got 6 shaky signatures, and I don't even want to go in that mud pile, but people know that he used the secretary hand. And the secretary hand features the J and the Y, right? You can look at the secretary hand alphabet if you want. You can go to Google Images or something. You'll see that it's prominent. In fact, a lot of people back then, if you remember, they would spell the word king with a Y, K-Y-N-G, because that was the common usage. Now, when you go into shakespeareswords.com and if you punch in a word with a J, guess what? It doesn't exist. It's kind of weird. And you've got to be saying like Romeo and Juliet, come on, he's got to have a J for Juliet, but it's an I. Now, here's the thing. Edward de Vere, when he was 4 years old, he was put in a house, the house of Sir Thomas Smith. Sir Thomas Smith taught Greek at Cambridge University. And back then, students had to learn Greek and Latin if they wanted to go to a university. The reason why is because all of the books were either in Greek or Latin, one of the two. There are very few books in English. By the age of 8, Edward de Vere was attending college at Queen's College University, And there was an entrance exam for students. Now, here you have an 8-year-old who can pass this difficult Latin exam to get in. Of course, he's been helped by Sir Thomas Smith and his wife, who spoke Greek and spoke Latin through the house. Why this is important, and they also spoke Italian too. Why this is important is there is no J in Greek and Latin and Italian. I mean, today, if you know Spanish, you know the word Juan, it's spelled with a J, right? But it's silent. And so in Italian, they just don't even have it. What letter do they replace the J with? It's replaced with an I. So when you see constantly
an I and a J look similar for a reason. In the development of language over time, I would.
Sorry. Yeah.
The alphabet that because of that, the I and the J probably.
You broke up a little bit there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were breaking up a little too. So hopefully the audio won't be too bad.
Yeah, but there's also the Y. So if you see like a word, let's say injury, and you're taught, we're taught that William Shakespeare used the secretary hand, so we expect to see a Y in that word. And instead we see an IE. So that's what I mean. There's something off. When you see this constantly, you know that something is not right in Denmark. So that's where I, in my book, that's what I bring up. And this, by the way, this is new. It hasn't been talked about in 400 years. It's like I was the dumb guy who kind of came across it. Instead of writing a long, nonfiction book about I's and Y's, I just made a fictional book where we put William Shakespeare on the stand and ask him questions. So it's through like a time machine using AI technology. And by the way, I went to, in real estate, occasionally I have to go to court, and I went to court, like 3 times since like 2020 or 2020. And I was amazed at how often the judge used Zoom technology. You spend like a half an hour waiting there, and he's talking on the phone, on his laptop to other attorneys, and you're sitting in this courtroom, and it's like you're not even there. He doesn't care. He's got to get these other cases off his docket, I guess. So, but that kind of inspired me. Why don't I just throw it out there? And my idea is that get people talking about something other than religion and politics. Get them looking into this, because the truth does matter. And I think it's a fun subject to, you watch Anonymous. You can have agreements or disagreements with, like I mentioned, I don't think that Edward de Vere was the son of Queen Elizabeth, number one. So I'm different there. I don't believe that they had this love child together. And I could be wrong about that, but that is, what people believe.
Well, you read my mind. Unless we have a time machine, we aren't going for certain of these things. We can speculate. We can engage in the discussions and try to present our arguments as best we can evidence them. And it is up to each and every person. Again, I'm not taking a position on this one way or the other. I'm just here to let you present your aspect of it to the audience as food for thought. But now let's give the title of your book.
Sure. It's called The Trial of William Shakespeare, a Love Story. So the love story actually involves Edward de Vere. And Edward de Vere went to Italy. And what's weird, when you start researching this stuff about Edward de Vere, if you were to take a map of Italy and have push colored pins into the cities of Shakespeare's plays, you would discover that these are the same places that Edward de Vere visited on his trip to Italy in 1575.
Now that's wonderful. Some would argue coincidental evidence. Others would argue that's way beyond coincidental, right?
Yeah, and what gets weird too is, okay, so there's a play called The Taming of the Shrew. Okay, and The Taming of the Shrew, which takes place in Pisa. Now, Pisa has, of course, the famous Leaning Tower of Pisa, right? Okay, so I think it's in Act 3, Shakespeare, one of the characters says to the grave citizens of Pisa, something like that. So for years and years, theater directors would have, the crowds that were in this scene have these solemn faces, and because they're grave citizens. Then in like 1980, some professor discovered that the area where Shakespeare was talking about, there was a graveyard. What are the odds that he would, be able to have, know about this area? In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock tells Tabula, I think is his name, he says, so those that counter Edward de Vere say, well, he never really speaks about canals. He was, if he was in Italy, how come there are no canals mentioned in the plays? But if you're under the assumption that Edward de Vere wanted to hide his identity because he didn't want his right hand lopped off, Shylock doesn't say, I'll meet you at the canal. He says, I will meet you at the Rialto. Now, the Rialto is a famous bridge in Italy. It's not on any maps, but it's a well-known marker. And in Romeo and Juliet in Verona, took a walk in the forest west of the city, in the sycamore trees west of the city. And in 2010 or something, this guy wrote a book about trying to find Shakespeare through reading through the lines, and discovered that there was a grove of sycamore trees that were like 400 years old west of the city of Verona, where Shakespeare had mentioned. So when you have these little facts, and the truth is that William Shakespeare never left England because he would have needed written permission to leave the country. That there was a plague then, and the Queen was afraid of having, somebody go to Italy and bringing back the plague to England. It was kind of like 2020 all over again, where it was considered treasonous to leave, and also because part of Italy was owned by Spain, and Spain was, they had the Armada War in 1588. So if William Shakespeare left in 1585, they're trying to say he must have left and come back, but it doesn't make sense.
It's like you said, how would he know? It's not like today you can hop on Google Maps, scene development, right? I'm going to write a scene about this, so let me hop on Google Maps and go virtually visit there so I can know what it's like. Exactly. That didn't happen then, unless if he had a time machine forward and was using Google Maps. But indeed, at any rate, these are wonderful, thoughtful, laid out your head logic, reason, common sense, and you're trying to present that. Some will agree with it, some will not, but now got the chance to think about it more. They've heard more about it. They've got a chance now to go check out your book, The Trial of William Shakespeare, A Love Story. Now, do you have a website?
I do. It's robertboog.com. But you can look up my name and you can find me on Amazon.com.
Of course.
And also YouTube. I actually wrote a couple songs. That's kind of like a hobby of mine, one song that I wrote actually had like 30,000 downloads. So in 1 month, and so that was like a kind of a wild kind of thing.
I wrote, my father was Ted Leonard Jr. He was the founder of Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Games. You could still find their 3 albums. If you got an 8-track player, you could get a copy of their 8-track pretty cheap these days. I dabbled in music too, yeah, long before the internet came along. I never got a record deal, so I went on to be author rather than a recording artist. So I hear you. I've thought about maybe one of these days I really should try to dig up the old reel-to-reel tapes that my music is on and digitize it and put it up. So thank you, Robert Boog, for coming on. I try to keep my shows around 30 minutes for your people. Is what I call the water attention span. They just give me the sound bite, but that could be out of context or it doesn't tell the whole story. Give me the headline. Well, the headline can be deceptive. You've got to go into the details, and for more details, people can read your book and read to you through your book. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Hey, gang, a brief interruption in the show about Christmas giving, kind of, sort of, or to ask, are you a coffee drinker? What about other coffee drinkers you know? It's indeed Christmas giving time, Hanukkah giving time. Again, I want to ask you, those coffee drinkers on your gift giving list, socks that'll get put in a drawer they forgot you gave them, a tie or a shirt that'll end up buried in the back of the closet they forgot you gave them. How about something useful like Blackout Coffee? Yes, I am partnering with Blackout Coffee. You can use promo code JOSEL20. Joseph for Joseph, L20 for 20% off. JOSEL20 promo code. Or, better yet, I've created a shortcut, tinyurl.com/blackoutcoffees. And of course, Blackout Coffees all run together as one word, not 3 separate words. So again, tinyurl.com. I love using their shortcut services /Blackout Coffees. Should take you right in and automatically apply your 20% discount. So for yourself or for others, this Christmas, give Blackout Coffee something you know they're going to use, something they're going to enjoy, something that they then fondly remember you and your gift every time they sip from the Blackout Coffee cup of coffee. Thank you all. Take care. God bless. Merry Christmas. Thank you for having tuned in for Constitutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Just wanted to give a brief shout out and thank you to all the folks on iHeartRadio, Player FM, being 2 in the top 3 platforms that my show, Constitutionalist Politics, is most often listened. So thank you all. Take care. Like and subscribe to Constitutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.